So hello everyone, it's the Cricket Connoisseur here and welcome to the second England versus Pakistan preview show. On today's show, I'm joined once more by host of the 22 Yards podcast, Joe Nuttall. And on today's show, we're going to be covering all of the bases of the upcoming test match between England and Pakistan, which is all set to get underway on Thursday the 13th of August at the Ageas Bowl in Southampton. But to kickstart today's show, Joe, I thought we'd start by talking a bit about the last game, okay? The series opening in Manchester. For those who don't know, England emerged victorious in that game by 3 wickets in an absolute thriller of a test match. So, Joe, what were your thoughts on that?
It was a great test match, wasn't it? I mean, talk about a good advert for Test cricket.
Brilliant advert. Yeah.
Some test matches recently have been great, like gripping, going back to like the Ashes last year. And yeah, I think Chris Woakes was exemplary.
Good word.
It's a good word, that, isn't it? Yeah, I just think the whole team played really, really well. I mean, I know you obviously have a few points about Dom Sibley that we're going to chat about later. But yeah, I think the whole team did really well and just brilliant tests. And Pakistan didn't play necessarily badly across most of the days, but I just think their heads went. And as Butler and Woakes started to build that partnership, I think Azhar Ali lost his head and probably made a few rash decisions. Was it right to take the new ball, or should they have kept the spinners on? Again, that's a bit of a debate, but yeah, I think it was a great test.
Definitely, and we'll talk about that Azhar Ali captaincy just in a little bit. But first of all, we'll start with England, okay? It was a fantastic comeback, it really was. To be from 117 for 5 to chase 277 runs, which was the 10th highest run chase in England's test history, was superb. And we've spoken already about Chris Woakes. What an innings that was. 84 not out when your team really, really needs him. And he'd been fantastic throughout the test match already. He took 4 wickets over the 2 Pakistani innings. He took the catch of Abid Ali, which was a key wicket, a key moment. Chris Woakes, you've already said it, was exemplary. He was superb. He really was. And he was a key factor in England's victory at Old Trafford. And also, let's talk a bit about Joss, because myself in particular, I have been very critical. I understand that. It's come across that way. But it is because I know that Joss can produce this. He's a wonderfully gifted batsman, but his wicket-keeping lets him down. And that's the key thing. And what I just wanted to talk about Jos Buttler quickly with regards to this, it was a magnificent innings, 75 in the second. That partnership with Woakes was absolutely vital. In the first innings, played a pretty handy 38 as well. Let's not forget that England were in a pretty dire situation until that Pope and Buttler partnership. But I did just want to mention this about Jos Buttler, okay? In that test match, as a result of keeping errors, he cost England 84 runs, okay, over the 2, just in keeping errors. In 2019 to 2020, he has on average cost England 26 runs per game against spin bowling, and he hasn't kept in the subcontinent, sorry. So that to me is still raising flags. His batting's been superb, okay? Just to say this so far as well, in the West Indies series and in this Pakistan match, he's averaged 37.71 with the bat. He scored 67 in the last game of the series against West Indies. That was a vital innings. We've just spoken about the 75 and the 38. He's been phenomenal with the bat, but it's just the keeping. That's the only thing that's really preventing me from saying he's nailed on at the moment. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit about England's keeper scenario in a bit. But in terms of this test match, wicket-keeping needs to be a lot better. But his batting was typical Buttler. Beautiful, elegant, full of flair and swagger. It was brilliant.
That's how we should go about it.
Exactly. And that's something that he lacked in 2019. Look at the Ashes, for example. Until that final test match at the Oval, where he got 70, he just looked like a shell of himself. He was really batting within his means. And today, well, not today, because we're recording this on the Tuesday, but in this particular test match, he seems to have just let all of those inhibitions go. And he was superb. So fair play to Buttler. He silenced his critics. I can't moan about his batting this week, and I'm not going to, because he thoroughly deserves to keep his place for that batting display. But I still think there's questions with wicket-keeping. England need to look at that, and hopefully we can resolve that heading into the remainder of the series, and of course into the foreseeable future as well. But with England covered, I did just want to talk quickly about the first innings as well with Pakistan, okay? Because that was pretty poor from England. Let's face it. Okay, we had Buttler dropping Masood on 46. He then goes and gets 156, which was an incredible knock. You had Root with his captaincy, being very safe, being very conservative with the field placements. And for me, it just wasn't great. And for the first two days of this test, it looked like typical England in the past year or so, very flat, very lethargic, lacking just that X factor. And then it all just changed. And I think realistically, what I want to really pinpoint out of this is Joe Root's captaincy in the second innings. He was absolutely impeccable. He really was. We've just spoke about Azhar Ali's captaincy. We'll dig deeper into that sooner. But Joe Root, his field placements were superb. They were aggressive. They were actually innovative as well, which is brilliant to see as an England Test fan. It's something that he hasn't shown enough in the past. You had the bowling rotations, phenomenal. They really were. Chris Woakes coming on. You give him 5 overs, he gets 2 wickets. You bring Ben Stokes on. That was another inspired change. He gets another 2 wickets. And Pakistan get bowled out for 169 runs. It was absolutely genius from Joe Root. Far better. And as I said, hopefully England can replicate those kind of performances in the next 2 matches, as opposed to the first innings performances. But do you just have anything else to add on that, Joe, in that particular respect?
Yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying about Root's captaincy. I think for me, I'd like to see Root model himself around someone like Brendan McCullum as a captain at times. You know, Brendan McCullum really sticks out to me over the years as he's really out there with his field placements, as you say, and
Yes.
he was really innovative. And I think Root did follow that model a little bit in the second innings, like you say. And of course, there's going to be times where you need to, contain. That's just naturally that's going to happen. But then again, there's times where you need to apply pressure and maybe go, with a few funky fielding positions and just, go a little bit out there with where you place your men. So I completely agree with what you say there.
Yep, of course. And, well, it proved to be the case. England came out victorious as a result of good captaincy and extremely good batsmanship from Chris Woakes. And obviously, as a big advocate of Chris Woakes, I was extremely happy with that. His good record against Pakistan continues with both the bat and the ball. But now let's talk about the men in green. Because for the first 2 days of that test match, they looked like they were going to sweep aside England. They were absolutely phenomenal. And I just really want to mention Yasir Shah. He was absolutely phenomenal. He took 8 wickets in this match, 8 for 165. Those are his match figures. Absolutely brilliant. His leg breaks were beautifully flighted, very consistent, great wicket-taking deliveries. The one to Butler in particular, was an absolute jaffer in the first innings, just kind of slid through the gap between the bat and the pad. What do you make of Yasir Shah's importance in his role heading into the remainder of this series? Because obviously he bowled a lot of overs in that second innings. We'll talk about that as well. But how important do you think he is to ensuring that Pakistan are victorious in this next match?
He's absolutely vital, isn't he?
He is, yeah.
I think a lot of people have this misconception that he has a bad ball in him. And sure, every bowler does. Everyone's going to bowl a short ball or something, or a wide ball, that the batsman can drive. At times, everyone does that, But I don't think Yasir Shah did that too much throughout this test. I think he really, really, just bowled great areas. I think at times England played him well. I think it was sort of late on day 1, maybe early day 2, where they just came down the pitch to him and just sort of countered him. It might have been actually day 2, day 3 that they did that, and came down the pitch to him and tried to reduce the amount of turn he would get and the amount of impacts that he would have on the game, if you like. But in the sort of second half of their first innings, England didn't really play him as well. But I think he's just a brilliant player, and with the bat as well.
Let's not forget,
it didn't really make a difference in the sort of whole context of the game for Pakistan, because obviously they lost in the end. But those, what did he get, like 32, something like that at the end?
He scored 21 in the first 9 balls of
exactly,
which was
extraordinary.
And
when he hooked Archer in like the first over, and I was just sat there thinking, this is going to could be a long morning. What's saying he won't go and absolutely nail 100? Because he looked like he would just obviously probably wasn't going to happen. Obviously it didn't in the end, but he's done it once before. What's saying he wouldn't go and smash a quick fire 100, a quick fire 70? So he's just a vital player, and just one of many important cogs in that Pakistan bowling attack.
Of course, very nicely put, just one of many. And they do have an extraordinarily deep bowling attack. Superb pace from Naseem Shah. You have the consistent nagging length of Mohamed Abbas, the dynamism of Shaheen Shah Afridi, and then you have old faithful, old reliable Yasir Shah to come in with those beautifully flighted leg breaks. And yeah, he was fantastic. I've already mentioned it. He honestly just had England on strings for most of that game.
Really
He was
good.
fantastic.
Yeah.
I did just pick up upon your point with regards to he does search for wickets too much. I think that's a very good point. As we mentioned with the captaincy, sometimes you have to contain. I think Yasir Shah does need to do that, especially on English wickets. There is a bit of turn, but it's not the subcontinent. Not every ball has to be a wicket-taking delivery. Some you have to just set up batsmen, and I think he did lack that at times, in particular against Jos Buttler. I think he could have maybe just set up Buttler a bit better instead of continuously going for the stumps. But other than that, he was absolutely fantastic and fought like a lion. He really did. I put it up on my Instagram story. It was absolutely brilliant. And I felt really, really bad for him because it was a great individual effort. But now going on to maybe the not so good parts of the Pakistani innings, really, in both batting and bowling terms. We actually have a fan question for this one, Joe. And for anyone out there watching this, if you want to send in your questions, put them in the YouTube comments or go onto Instagram, leave them in a post or put them on the story. But this one is from Panashi, okay? This is in particular about the second innings. Should Pakistan have gone with an extra batsman instead of a second spinner, so Shadab? Should they have gone with a specialist batsman such as a Fawad Alam, or did they go with the right option by taking Shadab Khan, in your opinion?
For me, they went with the right option, but they didn't utilize Shadab correctly.
Exactly.
Shadab, I mean, he's only 21. I thought he was a little bit older than that, but he's got a lot of obviously like growing room, if you like, in Test cricket. And I think the more he bowls in Test matches, the better he's going to get. And his action, just every single time I see him bowl, his action just completely throws me because it's for a leg spinner. It is very strange.
It
action
is. Yeah,
and run
I
up.
agree.
It looks like he's going to bowl some off spin, but yeah, I think he definitely should have bowled more. I think obviously, like you said, the pitch wasn't turning like it does sometimes in the subcontinent, but there was a surprising amount of turn there, or like for Old Trafford, an especially surprising amount. And I think maybe spin at both ends with an older ball would have suited Pakistan really, really well throughout the second innings. Obviously, Wokes and Butler gradually grew into and sort of got themselves in and settled at the crease. But if they'd had two spinners on, Shadab bowls are great. Googly, doesn't he? He's very
he bowls a lot of them as well. I think it's 1 in 5 deliveries is a Googly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is, and it's not very easy to pick. They did a comparison on Sky, and it is like obviously a Googly is going to be different, but it's really, really subtle. Shadab's Googly, and that's obviously going to be a challenge for the English batsman, especially the way he sort of his action is like an off spinner, so even more difficult to pick, you could argue. And then Yasir obviously is just we've already mentioned he was just a brilliant bowler. So yeah, I think he was definitely under bowled. I mean, what did you say? He bowled
11.3 overs in the entire match, which is extraordinarily low.
Is it that? Yeah, that's crazy. He scored a few runs in the first innings.
Scored 45 quick runs as well. And not only that, it was the running. Really good running as well.
Exactly,
they were putting England under a lot of pressure with those quick singles.
Yeah, exactly. But did he do anything that, Fahim Ashraf wouldn't do or Fawad wouldn't do? In terms of, not because he's not as good as them or not because he's, he's obviously a very different player, but because of the amount of overs he bowled, if Fahim Ashraf had played, could he have just done a similar job to him, really? But yeah, I think he should have played, but he was definitely utilising the wrong way.
Great way of putting it. And I completely agree. I think he was underutilised, if anything.
Yeah, really.
To bowl 11.3 overs, just to put that into context, in the first innings, he bowled 3.3 overs and got 2 for 13. Those were his figures. In England's second innings, Ben Stokes bowled 4, and Ben Stokes wasn't even meant to be bowling. So that is just a staggering statistic to me. And I also like that you mentioned he has growing room. Now, that is true with any young spinner. And I like this with Pakistan's team because you've got a 21-year-old and you've got the experienced veteran in Yasir Shah. I just want to give this to any Pakistan fans out there who are a bit doubtful of Shadab Khan. Okay, he's bowled 159 overs in 6 matches, only taken 14 wickets, so his strike rate is pretty poor. It's 68.1. But with that being said, he's bowled 159 overs. He's bowling on average. He's played 11 innings bowling. He's averaging what? 10, 11, maybe 12 overs a match? That's really underutilising him.
It's really poor, yeah.
It's not. And then you compare that to Yasir Shah, who's bowled 2,083 overs. So those two are pretty much incomparable. They're nowhere near each other in terms of consistency, in terms of accuracy. And that's why it's experience. With any spinner, we say this all the time about Dom Bess. They have that growing room. You need to give them time. You need to be patient because these skills adapt with time. And if Pakistan really want to hone him as a red ball player, first of all, they need to give him more overs. It's as simple as that. 11.3 overs in a match on a turning pitch it's baffling.
Yeah, imagine if it gone to day 5.
Of course,
imagine if it's been all 5 days. Then
you do. You have to question that. You really do have to question that. That is really, really under bowling someone. Okay, and in addition to that, when you think of the wickets that he's played on, they haven't been ridiculously, other than this match, I suppose, they haven't been ridiculously conducive to spin. And he's played 6 matches. He needs some more time. But with that being said, this is the big question. This is actually another question from Pakistan fan. Would you pick him for the second test?
Yes, I would, based on the fact
over Fahim Ashraf or even Fawad Alam as the extra batsman.
Yeah, based on the fact that they are going to use him. Like, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because you would have said at the start of this, especially with it being at Old Trafford. I mean, Old Trafford and the Ageas Bowl are the 2 places in England that it turns the most, right? And like they just so happen to be, the 2 grounds being used for Test cricket this year. That's just complete coincidence. To me, it would make sense. But if he doesn't bowl, if he only bowls 10, 11, 12 overs in the match again, then what is the point of picking him for the third test?
Exactly. When you've got Asad Shafiq or Masood could bowl, they're off spin.
Exactly,
of course.
And I think, that will be like England picking Jack Leach and him bowling 10 overs, and then you may as well just bowl Root because, that's the thing. I think Misbah needs to have a sit down with him, with Azhar Ali, and genuinely question it, because to me, the way he batted as well, it almost seems as if Pakistan are maybe trying to turn him into more of a batter who is a part-time spinner. Sort of like, I don't know, maybe one day could bat in the middle order and just bowl a few handy overs of spin, which is completely the wrong direction.
I agree with you on that one.
As you say, 3 overs, 13 runs conceded and 2 wickets or something like that, whatever you said.
Yeah, correct.
And,
spot on.
Yeah, and that's a really, really good start. Obviously, you could argue a bit expensive, but he got 2 wickets in 3 overs. And if he bowled 6 overs, he would have got who knows how many he would have got, if he's carrying on at that rate. So, I think he's going to play, I think. But if he doesn't do anything or doesn't really bowl, then what's the point? They may as well bring in an extra seamer or an extra batter.
Well, we'll talk about this a bit later on in the show, because I have actually got quite a bit to say about this, funnily enough, because obviously Pakistan did look very, very stretched in terms of their batting. But we'll talk about Shadab's role later, obviously, when we're talking about our 11s. But talking of under bowling, the other name that really stood out to me was Naseem Shah in that second innings. He did not bowl that many overs. I was hearing on commentary Wasim Akram saying he should have been bowling at least another 2, 3, maybe even 4 more overs. Would you agree with that? Even though he is a 17-year-old, he's young, the body still isn't fully developed, he's bowling ridiculously quick speeds for that age. Would you have been tempted to bowl him maybe 2, potentially 3 more overs in that match, in particular against Chris Wokes?
Well, they might have been protecting his body. I think if that wasn't the case, then yeah. But he might have had a little injury. They might have just been protecting his body. I think it was Wasim Akram who was saying like you just said, he's not developed. And I think you used Freddie Flintoff as a comparison when he first came through at Lancashire. Yeah. And his back was like, half of it was like a fully developed man and half of it was like a child. Mm-hmm. And they were maybe just trying to protect that, same age. Obviously, Nassi maybe a little bit quicker than Freddie was at 17.
A little bit.
Give or take. But yeah, I mean, they genuinely might have just been protecting him. But I do think he's going to be a fantastic bowler in the next sort of 15, maybe 20 years, Pakistan, depending on how long his career goes for. And yeah, I mean, obviously he's only just the start of his career, and I think even in this series, he's going to have a huge impact if his young sort of body can manage the demands of Test cricket, because it is, especially as a fast bowler bowling 88 miles an hour, 90 miles an hour consistently, it is very demanding. So yeah, I do think they should have bowled him more, but they may have been just protecting his body and maybe bearing in mind the rest of the series, which is a bit negative, you could argue, but I can understand why they would do that.
So can I. And in fact, I don't think he was under bowled, because, as you said, you don't want him injured. The way in which he dismissed Ollie Pope, that was an absolute rip snorter, wasn't it?
It was
How do you play that? 89
I mean,
miles an hour
Pope got
on the
two
glove.
Jaffas in the game.
He did,
yeah.
Absolutely incredible. And not only that, with Naseem, his second ball that he bowled in the Test match was 89.1 miles an hour. He's just brilliant. He's so exciting to watch. Him and Shaheen are going to be a great duo. So I can understand why they would maybe be a bit conservative with Naseem Shah. If anything, I don't think that you could argue they underbowled him. I think they misused him.
I think he is an
against Chris Wokes, though. Exactly.
Yeah.
But against Chris Wokes is a brilliant player of the cover drive. Anything outside of his eye line on the offside, he's a great player, but he's very susceptible to the short ball. And I remember it was against Shaheen Shah Afridi, and it was the first over when Shaheen came around the wicket, and he just bowled a short one, and Wokes top-edged it, and it just went past, I think it was either Abid or Shan.
Yeah.
It was very, very close to being out.
And then I think it was... Oh, no, that was Butler. No, I guess when Butler top-edged it. Oh, yeah.
But after that, they didn't go to it again. They didn't even bowl it again. They tried it once and then sacked it off. It was really, really strange captaincy from Azhar Ali. It really was. So, as a captain, you'd be tempted maybe bowling one or two towards the end, in particular against the tail.
That's the thing. If you added one over per spell to him or to his overall overs,
that's a good point.
How many spells would he bowl in a day? Maybe like 4 or 5. So if you added one over to the spell, like at the very most 4 or 5, if you added one over to that spell,
or even just two spells.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. Then that could be an impasse. But I think they maybe could have got him to bowl round the wicket to Chris Wokes, Naseem, and just really target his sort of like chest area, not like aiming for his head necessarily, but that kind of area. And just really try and, like you say, because he's very susceptible to the short ball, and just try and get him out in that fashion, because especially round the wicket, it's a completely different angle for Wokes to face a right-hander from, and he won't be getting many balls to cover drive from that kind of angle. So, I agree with you.
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully Pakistan will employ that strategy a bit more. I'd also like to see England employ that with either Mark or Jofra to Shan Masood, just like Australia did. Just get a leg slip or a back pad. I think that'd be a great technique and tactic for England to employ later on. And finally, just with this Pakistan innings, we've spoken about Azhar Ali's captaincy. Okay, now there's a lot to talk about here, because this is a man under pressure. And I like Azhar Ali a lot. He's a wonderful human being. He's really nice, comes across very nice as well. He's a very humble bloke. But there's a lot of questions. Realistically, if Misbah was captaining, would Pakistan have lost that game?
Not when England were chasing that many runs on that kind of wicket with Shadab and Yasir.
They wouldn't.
No, probably not. And we would have seen press-ups at the end, no doubt, as well. So, yeah, there's obviously a lot of question marks over his captaincy. There's
lots. And before the series, this was actually a big point, and it's inexperience. And when you think of Azhar Ali's Test captaincy so far, he's won 2, he's drawn 1, and he's lost 3. But the key in this was a close match. This is the first time Pakistan have played a close match in a good year. When you look at the Sri Lanka series, for example, they dominated them in the first match. Second match got drawn because it was rained off. They beat Bangladesh. They got hammered by Australia. This was the first time.
Not by New Zealand.
No, it's by Australia in Brisbane.
They played New Zealand in one Test as a captain, and he got hammered.
Sorry. Yeah, but that was beforehand. I'm on about in terms of since 2019.
Oh, right.
Sorry,
he was still the captain, though. Is my point.
Correct. Yeah. Good point. But with regards to that, okay, he hasn't really had this experience of pressure yet. and his first test of pressure, unfortunately, didn't pay off. Now,
No.
let's first of all talk about the rotation. We've already mentioned it. Bowling Shadab for 11.3 overs. Didn't bowl short, which again was really, really strange. Really, really strange. You see all teams doing that to Chris Wokes,
Yeah.
and yet Pakistan didn't. And then, of course, we've already said Naseem Shah could have bowled him a lot better. In addition to that, what did you make of his field placement? Because I just thought at the end of the match, when Dom Bess came out to bat, okay, you've got the number 9 batsman. England needs 4 runs. Realistically, if you set a typical field, they're going to get them easily. And in the end, England did. I just think when Dom Bess came out, if I was a captain there, which obviously probably never will be, but let's face it, I would have got silly mid on, silly mid off. I would have got silly point, bat pad, would have got 2 or 3 slips, really pack him in and just really just almost sledge him, just pressurise him, put the pressure on. Because realistically, at the end of the game, they had 2 slips, the wicketkeeper and the bowler.
To be honest, it was easy for Best, wasn't it?
All he had to do was see off the leg break. All he had to do, the leg break came in, get your gloves and
Easy
the bat out of the way,
easy.
easy. Of course. So what did you make of that field placement? Because I just thought with 4 runs to go, you've got nothing to lose, and yet you could gain just a little bit. And a wicket could create even more pressure.
Exactly. Joffre, who's not been in good form, and then Jimmy, who
get the reverse sweep out.
Yeah. But yeah, I think sending Stuart Broad in before Dom Bess really threw Pakistan.
Yeah, that was good captaincy yet again. Good
Shane
strategy from England.
It's almost as if they were watching Sky Sports and heard Shane Warne and said, "That's a good idea. We'll send."
It was a great idea. It was genius.
Yeah, I mean, that boundary that he hit. All right, he didn't come off, and he didn't exactly. That was 4 runs. That he literally did his job, and then he swept one into short leg. That was 4 as well. If he hadn't literally hit short leg right in the pad. So I think that threw Azhar Ali a little bit. But the field placement to Dom Bess, that is the equivalent of needing one to win or 2 to win in a T20 and putting everyone on the boundary or 5 men on the boundary.
Yeah,
that's what it's the equivalent of. Like you say, what is a little bit of pressure going to do? You know, if you put he's not going to Pakistan. It would be we're not favourites for that test, were they? At that point, they were not favourites to win. And if you put, like you say, that kind of field where you put, 5 or 6 maybe more men round the bat, then Bess is going to have to come and try and hit a boundary because he's not going to be able to score anywhere else. And if he, one might catch his glove and loop up, or something like that, anything could have happened. And yeah, I completely agree. A little bit of pressure there is not going to ruin Pakistan's chances. It's not like they were I can't think of a different scenario that it could have affected, but
it wasn't the last ball. It wasn't they needed 4 runs on the last ball. They had the majority of the evening session and day 5. They still had a good 10 minutes.
Whole day. England could have, England could have realistically batted out that day. If they genuinely didn't feel confident, they could have just batted out that day and then come back, slept on it, and then came back on day 5 and scored the 4 runs they needed.
Yeah.
And I completely agree with that. It's really, really negative captaincy. I just wonder, is Azhar Ali the right man? It raises a lot of questions. Is he the right man to lead? You think Babar Azam is there? And probably a lot of Pakistan fans, I mean, obviously I can't speak for them, but a lot of Pakistan fans would want him to be the captain, I would assume. And considering he's like the Kohli of Pakistan or the Steve Smith of Pakistan or the Williamson of Pakistan, I would assume that they would want him to be the captain, and it does pose a lot of questions.
Yeah, good point. And obviously, if there are any Pakistan fans watching this, let us know. Do you think that Azhar is not the right man for the job? It has only been 6 matches. Let's not forget that. I mean, I think this would make him in terms of matches played and captain, it'd make him the least one since the 90s, which just shows you how great captains Pakistan have had over the years, actually. I don't know. It's a tough one.
You say it's been a handful of matches, but there is a Test Championship on the line. There's something to play for.
There isn't.
Well, that's the thing.
I don't think there is for Pakistan or England. I don't. Realistically. There isn't, no. Let's face it. Australia, India and New Zealand are streets ahead of both. Both England and Pakistan are in transition now and building for the next one.
But on the table, you see it all the time in sport and in all different kinds of sports. there is something to win, like Leicester winning the Premier League.
That's...
If I had asked you then, there was a Premier League on the line, and you would have said there isn't for Leicester, but you never know, do you? And do you, and you say they're transitioning, well, is Azarali the right man to lead them through that transition? Not to take, he's a brilliant number 3, and maybe captaincy affects his performance as well with the bat. But do you want someone to lead you through and past that transition? Once that transition period is over, or will Babar Azam just come in and take over as soon as it's done? It's a tricky one.
Exactly. Well, actually, I was going to ask about that, because I do see them as a team in transition. I see England as a team in transition as well.
No,
realistically, we're not the favourites, okay? As you said, anything can happen. That's the beauty of sport, isn't it, realistically? Pakistan could, in theory, win every single game from here. Okay, they could. And they could go on to win the Lord's final. They're brilliant at home in England, aren't they? It is like a home match in terms of their record recently. But I don't know. It's a good question, because if they do lose this series, I would be genuinely surprised if they didn't replace him.
Yeah, I agree.
I really would. And you've got Azam, and even if you don't get Azam, you've got Shan Masood, who can lead from the front as well.
Because the test that he's won was against Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, and not to take anything
at home
away
as well.
From those two
they were
nations.
home series, of course.
Not to take anything away from those two nations, they are two good nations. But you would probably say Pakistan are better than them, and you would expect Pakistan to beat them, just like you would expect Australia to beat Pakistan. So it swings and roundabouts, isn't it? We could have this conversation, and there's many different points we could have about it.
Very good point. And we've also alluded to his batting as well. Just listen to this in terms of overseas since his captaincy. 39 in Australia, 5.99.018. He's just struggled.
If he isn't the captain, he's dropped.
He's dropped.
He really is.
He is. And as you said, look at this. Since 2018, in away series, he's averaging 11.77 with the bat. He hasn't hit a single 6 in 2 years. Which shows his defensive mindset. And that was on display for all of us to see against Chris Wokes, who got him twice, bowling wide, outswing, nip backer in, got him twice.
Yeah. And it shows his defensive mind. Then that you could argue that carries over to his captaincy then. And that makes him lose his head.
Yeah, and that very conservative, very defensive, as you said, wasn't really taking the initiative. England were there. It
wasn't a Brendan McCullum.
No, England were there for the taking.
Yeah,
117 for 5. They need 160 wickets. 160 wickets, 160 runs. Not 160 wickets.
No,
that'd be a lot. But 160 runs. Realistically, I would just bring up the field just a little bit, put the extra slip in, put the men under a bit of pressure, really start talking. And actually, Pakistan did that fantastically well, didn't they? They created a really hostile atmosphere.
Yeah, I was thinking.
Really good.
Yeah. But, yeah, like 11 as an average in like the last 2 years. If that is anyone else, they're not in the side.
No, they're not.
That's the way it is.
In the West Indies preview shows, we kept on mentioning Shai Hope. Shai Hope was averaging 18. So, I don't know. I mean, Azar's a brilliant player at home. And as I said, I really do like Azar because he's humble, comes across very well-rounded and nice person in general. But overseas, it just isn't working. And when you look at his technique as well in English conditions where the ball's moving about and he's very heavy with his head, and the footwork isn't amazing against seam either. He's very, very susceptible and prone to getting LBW. And not only that, if you look at this, last few times you've been to England, LBW, bold, LBW, LBW. It's the exact same. Nothing's changed in 2 years. So
crazy, isn't it? That's crazy.
It is crazy. And
then again, he's had spells over here with Somerset where he's not been the captain and he's done well.
Good point.
Well, not necessarily like done outstandingly well to the point
he was
where
better in ODI. List day. He was better in the 50 over than the county championship.
True, but still similar conditions. Obviously, white ball, different format, but still in England, and
it is. Yeah,
he still scored runs at the end of the day. So maybe they take the captaincy off him for the benefit of him and the side in terms of run scoring.
Yeah, it does pain me to say though, because as I said, I do like Azar a lot.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
but it's not nice. Like, if he was a very arrogant person and went around with like acting as though he's the next Tom Bradman or Sachin or whoever, then fair enough. But he's just a nice guy. But unfortunately, being nice isn't enough in the world of cricket, is it? It's a bit cutthroat in international cricket in particular. But yeah, very, very interesting thing to obviously take into the next match, and something that Pakistan really, really need to work on. Because, well, it was shocking, wasn't it, realistically?
Yeah, it really was.
You had England there for the taking. That should have been 1-0.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very strange. This is the next question from the fan section. Do you think that the Pakistani spinners were too full in the second innings? It's an interesting question, and again, I think this was due to the game plan.
Yeah.
Would you suggest that they were? I think realistically,
I think the way England played them made them go more full. You know, like I said, England came down to them a lot, and that, you know, obviously created problems for Pakistan because their spinners were less effective. And then England completely changed that. I think it was day 2 and day 3 that happened. And England then on day 3 completely changed that and didn't get forward, didn't come down to them. And Pakistan were able to just, well, I mean, yes, they got a fifer. So, you know, he completely just changed the way, or changed the course of the game, really, because England had continued to bat like that, then, you know, they might have found it a lot easier to win this game. They might have obviously had a few more runs on the board, or a less of a Pakistan lead. But yeah, I think that probably caused Pakistan to do that because they were worried England would then, you know, come down to them again. Maybe they thought if we just push it a bit fuller, that will change England's game plan a little bit more. Obviously, there's a risk involved in that because England can then come down to it and create themselves a bunch of full tosses.
Butler did on a couple of occasions, yeah.
Exactly. And I think Butler played the spinners really well. I think it played into his hands with obviously sweeps and reverse sweeps. Yesterday was, swept a lot before lunch and before tea. So yeah, I think you can argue that they did, but I think there was a reason for that. They didn't just bowl that length for no reason.
Yeah, same. I'd agree with that. And what I would say, you could argue too full in general. I do think they were, in particular Shadab. But again, that's because of inexperience. In the second innings, he was bowling far too many full tosses. That is bowling too full. It's as simple as that. He's over-pitching it. With regards to Yasir, again, because he was searching for the wicket-taking delivery, the one to just kind of straighten up, just like Butler's one, he was a bit full. But then again, this is the thing with Yasir. When he set up Dom Sibley, that was some magnificent bowling because he bowled it really good, really three consistent balls, and then he bowled a really full one and just invited the edge. So that's something that I'd prefer to see from the Pakistani spinners. Just a bit of setup. We mentioned it earlier with Yasir. Instead of just searching for that continuous wicket-taking ball, contain, get the pressure up, and then go full. Invite the drive, invite the dancing down the track, because you could get a stumping. Rizwan's fantastic to spin. We'll talk about him in a second. But yeah, I would say they were slightly full. But again, England pressured them into that. And
I think there was a reason for that. So
yeah, I agree. Of course it is. And it's because England started to take the initiative away from them. And I think at that
fair
point,
play to England.
A bit of panic comes in and you need to take a wicket. So
yeah,
bit full. But again, I think the situation brought about that change, to be honest. And I've just alluded to Mohammad Rizwan. Now, Mohammad Rizwan was sensational, to say the least, wasn't he? Against the leg spin, against the seam. How would you describe and rate his performance at Old Trafford?
Well, I think standing up to Mohammad Abbas, obviously, Mohammad Abbas isn't quick in terms of international cricket, but he's still bowling up to 80 miles an hour, which is still very quick to stand up to the stumps to. And he was just brilliant. I think in the 4 tests so far, we've seen two, I wouldn't really like to say poor, but 2 under par performances from wicketkeepers. We've seen under par performance from Butler and an under par series from Dowrich. Obviously he got in the lip and stuff.
That's the wobble. To be fair,
it's
tougher for overseas
keepers.
Exactly.
But I think Rizwan dealt with that well. I think everything that came his way, he just really, really dealt with. And there was one that Butler let through his legs. And he just went down to do a long barrier, and I can't remember if it flicked off his glove or off his foot. But I just remember thinking like Rizwan would have stopped that pretty
Mm.
comfortably, and he looked like he's played in England for his whole career because he was really, really good. And yeah, I mean, he's of course not going to lose his place in the side the whole series, and he's shown why he's the best like red ball wicketkeeper Pakistan have available to them.
Yeah, definitely. Completely concur with that. He was sensational. I've already said it, he was sensational.
Yeah,
The fact that
really,
he's courageous. It's, of course it is. 80 mile an hour with a very hard cricket ball coming down at you. Stand up at the
and
stumps.
he's moving everywhere. Abbas.
Exactly. The wobble. You've got the wobble and the seam with regards to that. Of course, it's English conditions. And he just nullified the wobble, which, to be honest, we haven't really seen from overseas wicketkeepers for ages. And Tim Payne, Tim Payne's a wonderful wicketkeeper. He struggled at times in the Ashes. Rizwan just seemed to deal with it expertly. It was really, really impressive from Rizwan. Showed his talents with the bat at some point as well. Got, what's it, an enterprising 27. He looks quite alive.
Got a start, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, he does need to kick on, but of course, that's not really his role. His role is a wicketkeeper.
Yeah.
And the one thing I will just say, though, with Rizwan, something that he will need to improve is in terms of his slip placement. So we saw this. We saw this on two major occasions, I'd say. One of them was a Bass. Okay, so when Rizwan is up the stumps, what you do see is a gap, okay, between the keeper and the first slip. So that now means that the first slip has to do almost the wicketkeeper job of diving both ways. That could have been just contained slightly. But the major thing with that, how many edges went down and didn't carry to the slip cordon?
A lot, yeah.
He should have
been.
He should, yeah, he should have brought them closer, definitely.
And yeah, Rizwan, you could argue, could have come closer as well. A couple didn't really carry to him. But there was one, I think it might have been Pope. It was either Pope or Butler in the first innings who nicked off. And it was Butler, and he nicked off and it fell just short of Babar Azam at first slip. And it was actually, in the end, a really, really good stop. Probably would have gone for 4 because it was one of those that awkwardly bounced. But I remember thinking again, like, you know, if he'd been, you know, 1 or 2 steps forward, that probably would have carried to him. And that, again, could have changed the whole game. Fine margins in cricket, isn't it?
Barest of margins.
Yeah, exactly. And stuff like that could genuinely change the course of a match. So I agree with you there. But again, he's not very old. He's got years and years to,
of course,
to work on that and improve on that. And that's literally something that can be fixed in like
the next game. Yeah, next
exactly.
innings.
We may see that's improving. We may see an improvement on that in the next game. So yeah.
Oh yeah, it's not a dig at him. He was sensational. He was far better than Butler. He really was. That was one of the most impressive keeping displays I've seen in England from an overseas keeper in years.
Yeah, I agree.
Tell me where he put a foot wrong in terms of the spin. You saw how much Josh struggled with the bounce. It was very variable bounce with the turn as well, and he was just expert. Really was. Really impressed with Mohammad Rizwan. As I said, though, just bring the slips a bit closer. Also to Naseem Shah. Because the thing with Naseem Shah, although he's extremely quick, on an English track there won't be as much carry because he's quite, quite flat in his trajectory in terms of the delivery itself. So it's going to carry quite flat. It's going to be quick. It's going to hurt. But you need to be just, I don't know, a yard in, maybe. And if you drop it, you drop it. It's better than it falling short, isn't it, at the end of the day?
Exactly, yeah.
At least it shows you're in a good position.
That's something that can be worked on, like we're saying. In the next test, we might see an improvement. Literally, we might see that an improvement in that in the first hour of the day if Pakistan bowl first. So, you know, I think Sarfaraz can obviously help him with that. Who's ex-captain, a lot more experienced, and can be fixed very quickly.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think he's a brilliant keeper. He really is. And as you said, I think he'll be their number 1 choice for quite a while now. He was superb. So just the final thing before we move on to the second game now, and that is with regards to England's batting tactics. Now, I mentioned this in the preview show. With regards to Mohammad Abbas, you can go back, anyone watching or listening to this, and watch the preview show. I said England should take maybe 1, potentially 2 steps outside of their crease. And that is exactly what England did against Mohammad Abbas. Now, I have a couple of statistics here, which are staggeringly good, okay, from an English perspective. Dom Sibley opening the batting, someone who we didn't actually expect to do this because obviously unorthodox technique,
he has his own way, doesn't he? Yeah.
He does. But the fact is, he wasn't moving down towards it. He'd just taken a step out. So there was no difference. He was just a step outside of his crease. But the thing that really impressed me He did exactly what Markram and Wokes did when I mentioned those two as examples. Wokes also did it in this match. He came further down the pitch with his interception points. 70 centimetres difference. Okay. And when you look at the first innings, he got trapped in the crease, pinned LBW. His average interception point against Abbas was 1.8 metres down the pitch. In the second innings, he was 2.5 metres down the pitch. So a real change there. And I put this up.
Yeah.
I said this, didn't I, as well, in terms of from an analytical point of view, it changed Mohamed Abbas's deliveries. And it actually did. I actually have a stat to prove it. So in that second innings, to the right-hand batsman of Sibley, Root, Pope, Butler and Wokes, Mohamed Abbas bowled 20% of his deliveries wide on the crease, which is the most in his entire Test career so far.
Wow.
Which is staggering. And when you think about being wide on the crease, you're not generating as much swing, are you? Realistically, you're just bowling your bog standard deliveries. And that's because, well, to be fair, the ball wasn't really doing a lot, I will say that. But it's because England countered him. And they countered him immaculately. And when you think of him in the first innings, he looked really dangerous on the last tour as well, at Lords in particular, tore through us. It really did show a great change of mindset from England. And it is something that I think Pakistan need to not necessarily nullify, but just look at. I would say that with Mohamed Abbas, they brought Rizwan up to the stumps. They could have done that against Sibley, and they could have done that against Wokes as well. I noticed that they didn't do it to those two. And they could also just do it, what was I going to say? They could do with a leg slip. Because when you're thinking about Mohamed Abbas, if the ball's not doing anything and he strays down the leg side, you've got an easy release shot with the leg glance. Put a leg slip in, especially against Dom Sibley, you could gobble it up and Sibley could be gone. So that's just my 2 cents with regards to that, but I'm so happy. And it was brilliant to see, wasn't it, Joe?
Yeah. You know, I mean, you've pretty much covered all bases there. The way England played Abbas in the second innings was really, really good. And Sibley proved, well, that showed in Sibley's game. You know, he got through that new ball when he didn't manage to do that in the first innings. Obviously, in the first innings, Stokes employed that tactic and just got a good ball.
Jaffa. That was
I mean, there was
typical Abbas. Beautiful movement.
Exactly. Yeah. Ball of the summer, I would say so far in Test cricket.
Arguably, yeah, I'd agree.
Yep, and you know, Stokes obviously would have been aware, you know, to stand out of his crease. I think Wokes probably would have given people a heads up as well, and it obviously worked for Wokes in the second innings when he got 84. So yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head with that one.
Yeah, and can't really be prouder of that because genuinely, I said it in their previous show. If England just sat back in the crease, and we saw it with Rory Burns, happened twice. Just got caught in the crease, pinned on the back foot, trapped LBW. Thank you very much. Back to the pavilion. It was so good to see, especially from the young batsmen. Okay, from Dom Sibley and Pope in particular, who could easily have sat back. They could have gone, no, we're not going to change anything. We're young. If we get out, we get out. And instead, they were proactive. They changed their mindset. They changed Mohamed Abbas's delivery, line and length, and it was spectacular to see. It really was. Couldn't be prouder. Really, really special stuff from England. And yeah, proved the tactics right as well because it worked. And of course, Chris Wokes did that against Leicestershire in 2018, so no surprise that he did that. But yeah, I think we have covered the first match in a lot of detail there. Have you got anything else to add, Joe, before we move on to the second match?
No, not that I can think of. I think, yeah, just a great performance by England.
Well, definitely. There could be some improvements.
In the second, all right, okay, great second innings performance by England from Butler down.
Good comeback, I'd say.
Yeah.
Because if Pakistan, as I said, if they can replicate that for, instead of 2 days, 4 days, they'll win the series. They were absolutely sensational with the ball. Right, moving on to the second match then. Okay, so first of all, what we'll do, we haven't even talked about this, but obviously we've had the news about Ben Stokes. Ben Stokes is going to be unavailable for the rest of this series, which is a huge loss for England. First of all, I just want to say, obviously, I hope everything's okay with the Stokes family. And I don't think anybody will be against his decision. Okay,
not at all.
Needs the time off. He has it off. It's as simple as that. And as I said, wish them the very, very best. Obviously, in these difficult times, it's as simple as that. But with regards to the loss of Ben Stokes, how much of an impact do you think that will have on England, and how much of a boost will that be for Pakistan?
It's going to be massive on both sides of the spectrum, because Stokes was just getting back to bowling. Obviously, he took a couple of crucial wickets in Pakistan's second innings. And
he wasn't even meant to
great.
bowl, and he
Exactly,
provided.
and he still did it. And that's the kind of guy he is. That's the kind of Test cricketer he is. And Pakistan, I think, will be not relieved. That's obviously the wrong word, but relieved in a cricket sense that he's not playing, because he's just England's best player.
World's number one all-rounder, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And obviously, it's like you say, I'm really hope everything's okay with his family, and if he needs that time off, then obviously he's definitely got to go and take it. But I think purely from a cricketing perspective, which I do want to stress, because I'm not like mocking him or anything like that. Pakistan will be relieved that he's not playing, because he can just impact the game and change the game.
Of course, yeah. That's not bad to say at all, because when you look at what he did against the West Indies, that Dom Sibley partnership scored 170. But of course, family issues are far more important than playing a game of cricket.
Of course, yeah.
But obviously, with the loss of Stokes, that now does raise questions to England's bowling attack. Now, we had quite a good piece on this, didn't we, in the previous show, with regards to Chris Woakes and Jimmy Anderson. Right. First of all, would you select Jimmy for this next match?
No, because I think he needs a rest.
I would agree.
I would rest him, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I'm going to select Woakes. No doubt about that now. I'm not.
I said that.
On that previous debate, fair play.
Thank you. I did my research.
TCC preview gold, that wasn't it? But yeah. To be honest, I wouldn't select Anderson, as I said, because I do think he needs a rest. He's pushing 40 now, and he's still fit as a fiddle in Test terms. But obviously, he's a fast bowler. As with anyone, he's going to need to rest. You can argue the same thing for Naseem Shah in 3 Test time. Obviously, Pakistan haven't. I don't know when their next Test is going to be now, to be honest. But you can argue that he's now going to need a rest potentially. And that's just part and parcel of being a fast bowler. So, no, I wouldn't, but not because he didn't play well enough.
No, I'd agree with you. I think it's rotation, and we saw this case in point was West Indies series, how important rotation was. The West Indies didn't rotate Shannon Gabriel enough, they didn't rotate Roach enough, and they paid the price as a result. So, I personally would rest Anderson. Who would you bring in for him, though? Because I would be extremely tempted to put Sam Curran in.
Well, there's a few people so you could argue you bring another spinner in. You could argue you bring Jack Leach in, because
that's bold, like we did against India in 2018.
Yep, turns at the Ageas Bowl. So you could argue that,
and it's going to be dry, obviously.
Yeah,
we've been in a heat wave.
Nice hot weather in England right now for a change. So yeah, you could argue that Sam Curran's a very, very good shout. Offers something completely different. That Pakistan obviously didn't play in the first Test, which is left arm. And he, up front with the new ball, is really, really good. You could argue he should take the new ball with Broad. Well, I think that's, personally, if he did play, that's what I would do. Not because Woakes isn't good with the new ball, but because Curran is at his best with the new ball, and Woakes can do it with an old ball as well.
Yeah, he can reverse it.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, you could argue maybe for Sam Curran. And then, obviously, the other option is Mark Wood. Now, will Archer play? That's the question. Personally, I think Archer will play, because I think he's probably got one more test in him before he maybe needs a rest. But Wood and Archer in the same Test, again, didn't really work out as England would have hoped, I'm sure, last time out at the Ageas Bowl against the West Indies. But, I mean, that's scary on paper, isn't it? If you think Pakistan have one 90-mile-an-hour bowler, England have 2. And imagine those 2 from each end bowling 5 over spells at 90 miles an hour is scary. So, yeah, there's a few good options. I think any one of those 3 could happen. Ollie Robinson's another one.
He is,
been drafted into the squad as a replacement for Stokes. has taken more wickets for Sussex, as we chatted about on the
county review.
show.
Yep.
And yeah, he's obviously another one who could play. Maybe we'll see him make his Test debut. Who knows? I think he deserves it. So yeah, we'll see. But it could be any one of those.
Yeah, it could be. The reason I'd go Sam Curran, not only does he provide you that different action, as you said, brilliant swinger of the ball, isn't he? Especially that in-swinger. I remember the one to Dinesh Karthik at Lords.
Yeah.
Oh, absolute ripper. But he is. Golden Arm deserves that nickname.
Exactly. Yeah. He really
but in
does.
addition to that, you just said about the turn at the Rose Bowl. It'd be nice to have some footmarks for Dom Best to aim at.
Yeah.
That's all I'm thinking of.
So then, Jack Leach as well, though, turns it the other way. Something Pakistan won't have played in the first test.
Good
Just
point.
A shout.
It is a good point.
Dom Best didn't set the world alight with his bowling again, did he? Really, if he's on the face of things.
Let me just say one thing about Dom Bess. He definitely improved. And
if
you look at his pitch map, against West Indies, he was 85% in good and full. In that match, he was 91. So there have been a difference. Yeah. I guess that's because he was working with Jitan Patel. But of course. Of course. But yes, carry on, Joe.
No, but like you say, he definitely improved. But again, if you're thinking maybe they do go with two spinners, maybe one of those is Stokes' replacement, which I'm sure we'll talk about again in a little bit. But if you're talking about bringing Curran in, maybe then you bring Leach in as well to get it into that footmark, turn it away from the right-hander and turn it into Shan Masood, which is something that exactly Shan Masood didn't really face many things turning into him. So that would pose a different challenge to him, maybe a different way of getting him out, which was hard to do in the first innings. So, yeah, there's lots of different options for England, and it is a good time to be an England fan in terms of bowling at the moment.
It is, of course, yeah, it is. And I do like the off-spinner. I do like the addition of an off-spinner in the England team, purely because if you also look at the Rose Bowl stats in Test matches, it's only hosted 4, so not an immense amount of data to go off of. But in terms of bowling averages, this would have been massively boosted by Moeen Ali's, 17 wickets against India. But an average of 25 to 26 in terms of your bowling, and an economy rate of 2.9, which is actually the best of any other form. So you definitely need an off-spinner, 100% at the Rose Bowl. And I'm just thinking a left-arm option would be interesting, and people have been calling for Leach. So you never know. And also if you have Curran, you could take that risk of taking the specialist bowler instead of Best, couldn't you? Yeah,
exactly. Well, Curran could battle the order, maybe, as well.
Above or below Wokes?
Below Wokes. Maybe everyone just shifts up one. Who would that put at 3 then? Oh, sorry, at 4. That will put Pope at 4, Butler at 5, Wokes at 6. Maybe you put
what about Crawley?
At 6.
We forgot Zach Crawley.
But then that's a balance, though, isn't it? Then do you want 2 spinners? Depends how much you think the pitch will turn. Do you want 2 spinners and Curran, or do they want 1 spinner, Curran and Crawley, or Bracey, or I don't know. Probably
Lawrence.
Most likely will be Crawley. Lawrence, yeah,
would be a good option.
There are obviously a lot of, but he's not been called into the bubble, so is it too late now? I think it's probably too late for him to be in the bubble. So probably would either be Crawley or Bracey, I assume, or maybe Folkes. Maybe they give Folkes a go. Just with the bat.
Good point. Okay. As we're on the topic of obviously England's 11, why don't we give our 11s then? Because we've been asked this quite a few times on the fan questions, actually, in terms of who do you think England will drop for the next game, so that Stokes, including now that Stokes is gone. That's from Samuel. So let's give our 11s, okay? Joe, we'll start with yours. Go on, go ahead.
All right, so obviously Sibley and Burns opening, although Burns does need runs. He's going to finish the series, but
he got a 90 in the last match though against West Indies.
I know, but other than that, what else did he do against the West Indies? Really
good point. And not only that, I agree in terms of could be technically better against the Bass.
Yeah, does need runs. So
I agree.
He's definitely going to play the rest of the series, but from there, who knows?
Yeah.
And then See, I would like to see them bring. Right, okay, I'm going to go for Root at 3, Pope at 4, Folks keeping at 5, Butler at 6, Wokes at 7, Curran at 8, Best at 9, Archer at 10.
You would go 2 spinners.
Curran. Who's my other spinner?
You said Bess. Oh, sorry, no.
I didn't say Leach.
You're right, sorry. Yeah.
I didn't say Leach.
I've got
I
Leach
know.
written
I know.
down.
I suggested Leach. Oh right. I know. I suggested Leach, but I wouldn't go for Leach.
Fair enough.
Well, yeah. Anyway, so I will go. Butler at 6, Wokes at 7, Curran at 8. Well, Curran and Wokes can go whichever order. Curran, Bess at 9, Broad at 10, Archer at 11. I think Archer's unfortunately been relegated down the order even further now. So, yeah, that's my team.
Fair enough. It's funny enough, this is what I put for the alternate 11. And now this would have been an interesting one. This isn't my actual 11, but just hear me out on this. Burns and Sibley obviously opening. Bruce at 3, Pope at 4, Butler at 5 as a specialist batsman.
Yep.
Ben Folkes finally gets to play in his 3rd Test match series after what is it, a year and a half. He's my wicket keeper. Followed by Wokes, brilliant player, has to play. Just before we move any further, just a big up to Chris Wokes because he somehow improved his stats even more against Pakistan. So in the last preview show, we were talking about Chris Wokes, and Chris Wokes had an average of 16.93. As a result of the series opener, he now has a 16.52 average. And not only that, his economy rate has gone even better from 3.06 to 2.95. So Chris Wokes definitely has to play. I don't think there's any.
His batting average has improved as well.
Yeah, averaging less than 5 before that match as well in these last 5 games. And then he came out and got 19 and 84. Not bad. Not a bad return that at all. Likes playing Pakistan though. Wokes is an excellent option. So yes, Wokes. I have gone Broad at. Current at 8. Current at 8.
Oh, I was getting excited. Broad at 8 is something.
No.
Prospect.
Depends if they bring the spinner on. Actually, if you're facing some leg spin, bring him on. So yeah, current at 8, Broad at 9. I've gone Archer at 10 and Leach at 11. That's my alternate 11. Okay. With regards to, I just think that'd be interesting. I think it's highly unlikely.
That's if this is a predicted 11, then I don't agree with that, or I don't necessarily agree with mine. But if it's a preferred 11, then I definitely agree with that. Maybe Best for Leach, but yeah, something like that.
It would, but this is what I predict the 11 to be. Okay. Yeah. Burns, Sibley, Crawley at 3, Root at 4, Pope at 5, Butler at 6 with the gloves, Wokes at 7, Curran at 8, Bess at 9, Broad at 10, and Mark Wood. I think that Mark Wood actually will play in this one, purely because when I was looking at Archer, did you hear his post-match comments with regards to his pace?
I heard something about Root. I heard something Root said about him, like they're not worried about, which Root seems to say a lot about his pace now. I heard him say something about Naseem as well, Archer.
This is what I'm talking about. Yes. I just wanted to know your thoughts on this because he was talking about Naseem. Okay, and obviously Naseem, I mentioned his second ball was 89.1 mile an hour, which is astonishing. But what Archer came out and said was, I'm not being funny, I can't bowl 90 miles an hour every day. And I was very, very surprised to hear that because obviously you're human. There's going to be times when you are slower. But to hear that from a bowler in a post-match interview, would you ever have heard that from Akhtar or Lee or Tate? Would you ever have heard these express pacers?
You wouldn't have, would you?
Say, I can't do that every day. They would try. Mark would. Well, he tries. He would never admit that. If he says...
Exactly.
Oh, carry on, Joe.
No, I was saying exactly like he would never, ever say that.
He wouldn't. But he'd go out there and try his best. But he wouldn't admit it. You don't admit it. Okay. So again, I think that's just in terms of Archer's mindset. That does need to change because he's a wonderfully gifted bowler. He does offer you a bit more than just express pace because he can swing it. He's got a nice nip backer. Bowled beautifully to Abid Ali in the first innings with that nip backer and the short ball combination. But I don't know. I just think that mindset does need to change. But yeah, either Archer or Wood.
Do you think Archer can only consistently bowl 90 mile an hour in limited overs cricket because he only has to bowl in 50 over cricket at least? The most 10 overs.
10.
obviously at the most 4 overs in T20 cricket.
You know, it's an interesting point. You could argue that, but then you
Yeah.
have to think as well. Remember, he had that injury in Centurion, didn't he?
Yeah.
That kept him out of the South Africa series. So he's
But then he
obviously
was
not going to
bowling
be.
slow in New Zealand. Wasn't bowling express in New Zealand. Wasn't bowling slow. But he wasn't bowling quick for Archer.
Yeah, but that's because of how England have used him. England need to use him as an X
Yeah,
factor.
England didn't use him well in New Zealand, which obviously, I just say, had an effect. I just think if you can find the form he had in the Ashes, I know that's a easy
It's a
said than
massive
done.
ask, and it's
But,
it's not realistic every single game, but
no,
just here
and that's
and
the
now.
thing.
I agree with you. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Just now and again.
But hearing him say that he can't bowl it, it's quite disappointing, I guess, as an England fan, to hear someone come out and say that will be like Stokes saying, "Well, I can't score 100 every game," which is obvious because he's not going to score 100 every game. But Stokes will try and score 100 every game. That's to me, that's how we compare it. But yeah, I think it's a strange thing to say. Mark Wood may play. They may just go for that genuine, guaranteed 90 mile an hour because that's what you're going to get with Mark Wood. They're different bowlers, they're different types of bowlers, but you're still going to get faster balls from Mark Wood at the end of the day. That's as simple as it gets, really.
Good point. I will just say with Archer, did play very well in Southampton against West Indies, though, didn't he? Especially with the short ball.
True. Yeah.
Was fantastic. And again, I just think that's something that England need to mould into him. It's just that mentality, isn't it? It's that elite mindset. Because in my view, Archer could be a great. I wouldn't say this if I thought Archer's going to be a run-of-the-mill, just England medium fast seamer. I genuinely see Archer as someone who could be an incredible talent for England for a number of years. And I just think
agree.
just needs a change in mindset. That is the first thing. Overcome the mental battle. Okay. And another thing I would like to say, just maybe ease off Twitter a bit. Because again, I feel like if you keep on getting reminded on Twitter from not necessarily fans, but people who are doubters, they keep on saying, "Oh, he can't bowl 90, can't bowl 90." It goes in. It does. You can't ignore it for your life. So I think he just needs to take a step away from that aspect and also just believe in himself. Because you said about the Ashes, look at that spell to Steve Smith. That will be remembered for years. We'll be talking about that for years to come, decades to come. That is an iconic Ashes moment, and he can produce them, but he just needs to produce them a little bit more consistently. Not every game, but don't admit it. Well, that's all we're saying. Just change the mindset, change the mentality.
And if he can't do it every game, then don't play until you. I'm not, again, this isn't a criticism, but maybe don't play until he feels like he can do it in that game. So if he can't do it in the next 2 test matches, then don't play. Because what's the point of him playing? They may as well just play Mark Wood, who can, again, probably he's had, 3 tests off now. He's not played in 3 tests.
Good point, yeah.
And he had a week in between the series as well. So he's going to be fresh. He would have only bowled in the nets. Exactly. And Wood is always raring to go. That's the first thing, I think he captured that really, really well when he sung Jerusalem in that in that warm-up match. Team Butler against Team Stokes, and he clearly looked like excited for cricket to be back and acted that way and stuff. So yeah, if Archer can't do it every test, then maybe he shouldn't play every test.
Well, it is a fair point. The only argument I would say, Archer is a bit more skilled with the seam position, and also
for sure,
he's brilliant at disguising the bouncer.
Yeah. But if we're talking about just genuinely based on pace, then and then Ollie Stone's another one who can come in and
he's injured.
Fill that up in the long term.
In the future, yeah. Well,
yeah.
If he's not injured, which is sad again. Honestly, it is sad for Ollie Stone because he would be a brilliant bowler. He really would be. Really if anyone has seen him, you'll know. Really quick, really accurate, great Yorker, but just the body doesn't seem to want to keep up with it, unfortunately. And that's the perils of being a fast bowler. But with regards to Jofra, they keep on mentioning it, don't they, with the bouncer? Just so good at disguising it.
Yeah,
and against Pakistan, I just feel like we could use him as an X factor, even if he's not going to be going tete-a-tete with Naseem Shah, for example. He's not going to be going ball for ball. Naseem bowls 89, Jofra bowls 90, or the other way around.
That's what Wood and Archer were doing in the World Cup.
Exactly.
That's what it felt like they were doing. Yeah.
And hopefully those two can have a bit of a competition in the nets, and Wood will bring out the best in Archer because it's some competition. Because the best of Archer, you could argue, is one of the most exciting players on the planet.
Yeah,
He really
I would
is.
completely agree. Yeah, I would completely agree. But yeah, if Root uses him in 4 or 5 over spells, if he bowls one spell in the morning, one spell in the afternoon, one spell in the evening, but bowls at least like 88 miles an hour every single ball, then that's fine by me, because we're getting the best out of Archer, and that is the best of Archer. Like, on the face of things, if I say Joff, what word you associate with him, you associate pace with him. So
Electric.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I do like Joffre a lot. I really
Yeah,
do.
you can't hate him.
You
No,
can't.
you can't hate him.
No.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's a
he's quality,
character.
isn't he?
But
Yeah,
he just needs, in Test match cricket, to be one of the best. It's not just about what you produce on the field. You've got to have it up here. This is
yeah,
half of the battle, the mental, other side's the physical. So even if the body doesn't want to give you that 90 mile an hour, if you think it could come to fruition. But other than that, yeah, it's going to be interesting. Either way, I'm quite content. I think Joffre's got a good record, obviously, with the short ball bowling. That'll be fantastic to have at the Rose Bowl. Good carry as well. So I think Nassim's going to enjoy that as well. And Shaheen, funnily enough, Shaheen was meant to be at Hampshire this season in the County Championship. So I think it's going to be a really, really good battle. Realistically, this series is only just heating up. And let's talk
yeah.
about the men in green now. Okay, we've spoken enough about England there. Let's talk about Pakistan, because we've got a lot of questions with regards to Pakistan's selection for this next test. So first things first, we'll go with a question from Mezi Afridi. Should Shadab be dropped for this test match entirely? Should he just be dropped, not even considered? Should they bring in Ashraf or a specialist batsman?
Such a tricky one, isn't it? Because you could argue that, I mean, so just going back to the West Indies series and with Dowrich, for example, you could say, should Dowrich have been dropped? Where you could have said yes, and then Shahid will take the gloves and you bring a batsman in, or you bring an all-rounder in. Pakistan team doesn't really feel like, I mean, considering the amount of overs he bowled, to be fair, you could argue yes, and you just give Sham Masood the overs or whatever. For me, no, because I feel like he's such a valuable asset. And as I alluded to earlier, if he has a sit down with, coach and captain, and has a word with them about how he's going to be utilised, because if I put myself in his shoes, I would want to know how I was going to be used, and obviously I wouldn't beg and beg and beg to bowl, because that's not going to get you anywhere, especially in professional sport. But I would still want to know where I stand in the side, because, like I say, it does feel a little bit like they're maybe trying to turn him into a more of a batter, or more like a batting all-rounder, especially with the way he batted the other day, which was impressive. But for me, no, I don't think he should be dropped.
Well, I'm just going to play some devil's advocate, okay? I do
know
like Shadab a lot,
I
though.
know who you want to play.
You already know, plays for Sindh in the Qaider Azam Trophy, initials FA, Fawad Alam. But I'll tell you why. There is a genuine reasoning to this. As you mentioned, he bowled 11.3 overs. And not only that, you mentioned the way in which he batted. He bats pretty similar to Mohammad Rizwan in that sense. They're both very dynamic. They're very energetic. They provide Pakistan with a bit of impetus. But do you need two of them getting quick runs?
Exciting.
It's exciting. Yes, but it's quick runs. And when you saw it in the second innings, it didn't pay off, did it?
And then you have Yasser as well, who has shown he can do that 21 in 9 balls.
And the century against Australia as well,
exactly.
113. So realistically, what I would suggest for Pakistan, I said this right at the beginning of the show, actually, they did look a batsman short. So for me, I'd keep the openers. I'd go Shannon Abid. I think Abid didn't do particularly badly.
No.
Again,
but you're comparing him to Shan. Realistically.
Exactly. It's not. It's like the Shadab Yasser comparison, isn't it? Really, it's exactly. Not fair. He's 4 matches into his Test career. Azhar at 3, he still keeps it for me. Azam at 4, Shafiq at 5. Hear me out on this one. Fawad Alam at 6. Mohammad Rizwan, of course, as the wicketkeeper. Yasir Shah. He's going to have a very sore shoulder, though, I imagine. Bowled 30 overs in a day on day 4. Shaheen Mohammad Abbas. Now, this is the interesting thing. Do you think they'll rotate Naseem Shah? Or maybe not for this match, but at some point in the series.
At some point they will. I don't think this seam attack will play every game. Mohammad Abbas, I think we can safely say, will play every game.
Yeah, he's got a very fluent action.
And he's very steady as well. Naseem, sprints in, and the way he bowls is very quick, and his action is very quick. And yeah, Mohamed Abbas is very steady. Not like that's a bad thing, but you could argue it's a very good thing because, and he clearly looks after his body well.
Very
And,
well, yeah.
Yep, and yeah, I think he will probably play every match, and I think Shaheen will as well. But it's a tricky one. It depends how much experience and how many overs they want Nassim to bowl. I mean, he's 17, so how many overs does he have in him? Like, I think in England, a 17-year-old in club cricket can only bowl. Obviously, it's a very different standard, but a 17-year-old can only bowl. I think 6 overs in a spell in England.
Yeah, that's right. We
I
really
think
you look after them,
yeah,
don't we?
exactly. So obviously, it's a completely different standard, and it's outrageous of me to even consider comparing that. But you can see why I'm making that comparison, and it depends how much they want to look after him and how much because he might be the kind of person to push and say, no, I'm fine, and then he might tweak a hamstring or something, or his back might get hurt, or his shoulder might get hurt. So it's an interesting one. I think he'll play this test, but the third test, I can't see him playing, to be honest.
No, and it is interesting. Of course, Pakistan have held calm. So held calm was fantastic in the warm-up matches in Derby. Took 11 wickets in the 2 innings. Wahab Riaz,
waiting in the wings.
Now I have a very innovative lineup for Pakistan, actually, because I didn't mention my number 11. I just mentioned, would you drop Naseem Shah? Listen to this. I don't think this is going to happen, but this would be a very interesting 11. You have Wahab Riaz in there. Maybe not at 11. Maybe you have him just below Yasir Shah. Okay. What I'd say with that lineup, okay, you've got obviously Wahab. He not only offers you pace, he also lengthens the tail. He's a bit like Yasir Shah, quite dynamic.
We mentioned it in the
scores quick
first
runs.
preview. He's back 3 in the T20 for Derbyshire.
He has, exactly. So you've maybe not the express pace that Naseem Shah gives you anymore, because Wahab Riaz is late 30s, but he's still a very wily character. The only problem, we'll say, lack of test experience in the last 3-4 years. Could go against Wahab Riaz, but again, that'd be a risk that Pakistan may not be willing to take. Obviously, Afridi and Abbas. So you've got those as your 4 bowlers. Now, we mentioned Shadab being bowled for 11.3 overs. The reason he's not in the team there is because I think in Southampton, we've mentioned the average with off-spinners. They've got Asad Shafiq and Shan Masood. You can easily get 11 overs from them and rely on the others.
Yeah.
Simple as that. It's just, will they take the risk?
But remember how many googlies he bowls as well? Obviously, it's not an off-spinner, but it is similar to an off-spinner. It's as close as an off-spinner that a leg spinner is going to get. So maybe that's why he does play. Maybe he goes up the order. Maybe he bats up the order a little bit. I don't know who he'd replace. Asad Shafiq didn't score many runs. Maybe he can bat up the order.
I mean, I'd love to see Fawad Alam. You know I would, because he deserves it. He really does. I don't want him to turn into... Well, he's not Hildreth because he has played. He scored a century on debut. And he's played 3 test matches. But he is in the vein of his life. He really is. He's in great form. So I just want to see him in a test match. And I think in English conditions, he's got quite a nice technique. Very compact. I already mentioned in that Qadir Trophy match between Sindh and Central Punjab against Naseem Shah, who got 6 for 78 in that match. I think that was in Faisalabad or Rawalpindi. It was one of the 2. Just looked really, really impressive to me. And I feel like he could be the anchor. I just feel that way. Obviously, you can feel free to disagree with me on that. It's completely fine, Joe. But yeah, what are your thoughts? Do you think Fawad will get a game?
I think he will eventually. They can't. A guy like that you can't really ignore. And if Asad Shafiq doesn't score runs in this test, I mean, well, I off the top of my head, can't remember what he scored in this match. I'm trying to remember what he scored, but yeah, I think Pakistan will go. I think they'll probably go with the same team because
the same. You think they're going to go with the same team? That's bold.
I think Shadab will play. It's tricky, isn't it?
Would you like me just to give you a stat? Would you like me to give you one stat which may or may not change your mind?
Go for it.
But I mentioned how good off spin is at the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
I said it was the best. The worst is leg spin. So leg spin. Compare this to off spin. Okay, the average is between 25 and 26. Leg spin, on the other hand, is 47 as the average, and the economy rate is almost 3.7. which is massive. It's a huge difference in terms of the average and the economy. You're averaging, what was it, 0.8, 0.7 runs more from the leg spinner per over. Would you play two? It's a
based
big
on those
risk.
stats. Based on those stats, no. Then
it's a big
based on
risk.
those stats, they've changed. Those stats have changed my mind. I'll probably then play Fahim, the extra receiver, just because I feel like he's more of a fallback option. He's more of an all-rounder, like a genuine all-rounder than Shadab, who I feel like was utilised as more of a very late batsman. He could have easily batted 6 for me. And yeah, I think that Fahim will be, again, can easily bowl those 11 overs if you need to. Plus, then they have the other 2 spinners or part-time spinners who can bowl. So, you know what, based on that stat, I'll change my mind, but I'll go a little bit different to you. I'll go for the same team, but Shadab is out and Fahim is in. Someone who I actually do like and I do want to see him play. I've seen him a bit for Northants, so yeah.
Oh, Fahim, yeah, same. Saw him at Edgbaston last year. He's quite an entertaining player. The only thing that I will say, again, you could argue more of a white ball player. Interesting.
True.
Again, like Shadab, see an experience in the red ball format.
When do you bridge that? Eventually, they're gonna, if they want him to play Test cricket, eventually he's gonna have to at some point. I know that's a bit of an obvious statement, but he's gonna have to do it at some point.
Of course it is.
So, you know, I mean, I agree with you with your argument there, but eventually he's gonna have to play. So why not now?
Fair enough. Very, very good point.
They've got to try something to equal the series. So
they do. Yeah, and as I said, I would like to see them take some initiative and a little bit of risk. As you can tell from my squad selections, I'm not conservative with my choices. But yes, also with your question to Asad Shafiq, scored 7 in the first innings, and then 29 in the second, and was run out by that beautiful piece of fielding from Sibley.
Yeah.
Which was actually arguably changed the innings.
Yeah. Well, obviously 29 is a start, and obviously he didn't get himself out as such in terms of nothing technically got himself out. He didn't play a bad shot. But 29 is not incredible, is it? And that's Shafiq's been around for a long time. He's probably one of the more experienced batsmen in that Pakistan lineup. So especially if you're comparing that to, I would say Babar Azam's 60 odd, whatever he got 70 odd, is a start for someone like Babar Azam, especially in the middle order. Is only
good
a
innings
start
as well,
yeah. Yeah, it was really, really good.
Cracking innings. Beautiful player.
Yeah, he's unreal, isn't he? And the fact that it took him so long to score a run as well. He went for quite a long time without scoring, and that didn't really seem to have an effect on him. Unlike Azhar Ali, who when he was on a pair, took forever to score. It felt like, he was just batting really, really slowly to get that single. And he tried to force it, but maybe he dropped Asad Shafiq eventually. If he doesn't score runs in this test, then there's a shout, and who knows who they'll bring. Maybe they'll bring Shadab back and back him up the order. I can't think of anyone else who they probably will bring in.
No, fair enough. They'll either bring the specialist batsman or a different all-rounder, won't they, realistically? Yeah. But yes, to anyone watching, let us know your predicted 11s. Who do you think is going to play? Who do you think is going to be dropped? Leave it down in the comments below. Obviously, we'll go through them. An interesting question here from, bear in mind the name of this Instagram page, Imam Fan Page. Okay, a long-time follower of the Instagram account. Should Pakistan open with Imam ul-Haq and potentially open him up with Azhar Ali or / Sam Masood?
Well,
would you like to see Imam?
Again, if Abid Ali doesn't get runs, I mean, he didn't do badly necessarily. He just didn't, but comparing him to Sam Masood, who got that amazing 100. So
he did.
If he doesn't get runs in this test, then why not? Again, Pakistan, especially if they lose this test, and they may as well try out a new player, rest some key players as well. Maybe Sham Masood has a rest.
Potentially.
But, yeah, I mean, they're not obviously going to drop Sham Masood now. He's obviously going to keep his place. I'm pretty sure he must be surely still the top scorer in the series. I don't think Wokes would have got past 150 runs, did he?
He got 105. Got 105.
Yeah.
He was close.
So, yeah, maybe in the next test. But yeah, maybe we'll see him. He's a great player. And yeah, like Azhar Ali opening. who knows? I think he is a number 3 on the face of things. Forgetting his captaincy for a moment and his form since becoming captain, he is a number 3. But you could argue he could open the batting. Babarazan could move up to number 3 as well, which would be an interesting one. Maybe
very interesting.
Could be in the second ball of the match against a brand new ball. But yeah, we'll see if Oman plays.
Yeah, just to provide some stats for Imam al-Haq, we mentioned this in the last preview show actually. So his career average is 25.52, strike rate 46.54. In England, it's not great to be honest. 18.66 drops down to the strike rate actually improves, but he faces less deliveries, which as an opener isn't great. And with regards to Azhar Ali, I'm pretty sure I do have the stats here actually for Azhar at number 1. Let me just check those. No, I don't seem to have them, unfortunately. Or do I? No, I don't. But I imagine that he does average more at 3. We'll find that out in due course. But yes, I think realistically, as you said, Shan's the obvious choice, isn't he? And I think I would keep Abid Ali just for this one. The one thing I will say, he does need to be aware of the game plan towards him. Because it was obvious. It was Archer, bowl short, bowl short, bowl short, bowl full. And it worked. Read him like a book. So I will say that. Also, with regards to Shan Masood, we saw it in the second innings. It was a very un-Shan Masood-like dismissal, being strangled down the leg side.
It's a bit like how reminded me of how Sibley's got out a few times. Obviously, not comparing their technique or anything. Sibley's got a bit of a crazy technique, but it did remind me of that and how Sibley has been dismissed before.
Good point. So just to give you some tactics towards England, what they could do with Shan Masood, we mentioned it earlier, bringing the back pad, potentially bringing a leg slip as well. In particular, if Stuart Broad's bowling around the wicket, his release shot is working off the pads. So if you've got a leg slip, even a leg gully, back pad for the short one against Archer or Wood, whoever it is bowling, could be a way of getting him out early. Not only that, he does seem to like to come down towards the spin. And he did that in Australia, did it a couple of times against Nathan Lyon, picked out the man at mid-off, because he's a left-hander. Picked the man at mid-off. That always gets me with regards to field placement. But yeah, picked out the man at mid-off. So that's another thing England could do. We could just tempt him into that shot. But yeah, I just feel like with Shan, we do need to change the tactics, because the one negative I will say with England's game plan to him, do you realise how we were going to get him out? Because I didn't. In either innings. I didn't see a game plan.
No, I mean, I guess the thinking, maybe in the first innings, their thinking was, well, Bess will just spin him out, obviously turning it away. A few foot marks, well, there will be quite a lot of foot marks because people have been bowling over the wicket with him being a left-hander would have suited Bess. Obviously then he did get a nick off Shan Masood, but fortunately Butler dropped it.
And the missed dumping.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think they maybe did have a very vague plan, but in terms of like an actual plan. But I like your idea of, maybe getting like we said before, like a leg gully, leg slip. I think that might frustrate England though in a sense, because they tried it to get Steve Smith out with it in the Ashes, and it didn't work. So I don't know. Well, it didn't until at the very last test of the Oval. So I don't know if that's something they will go back to, purely because their history of getting people out there is not very good. Obviously, it's a bit of a vague point, but maybe that will play in their minds and play on Root's mind a little bit. But yeah, Shan Masood's proved he's a great player and proved how hard work can, just completely change someone's game.
Yeah, definitely. It did work with Rassie van der Dusen though at Cape Town. We did introduce the leg slip. And also what I'll say with Masood, I forgot to mention this, his most productive shot in that innings was the flick shot. So going towards mid-wicket or square leg. He got 42 runs with just that shot alone, had a great control rate of 91% with that. So, as I said, England could just lure him into it. You just have
maybe put a catcher in.
You could, easily. Yeah. You could have one at square leg. Or, alternatively, as we mentioned, by having the leg slip, the leg gully, you just put men there and cover his scoring shots and kind of lure him into that release shot of the leg glance to the leg slip. Or, with the bouncer, if he goes for it, could go to the man at square leg. Alternatively, if he edges it, you've got back pad. So
There we go.
It's better than nothing. I'm not saying it's going to work
Yeah.
against Shamasood because he's a wonderfully
No.
gifted batsman. He's not one-dimensional. But the Aussies did it very, very well. And I know England don't have the likes of Cummins or Hazelwood and Stark on nice bouncy Australian pitches. But with the likes of Archer Woods, it could be viable, especially in Southampton where there's good carry. So just a thought with regards to Shamasood. But yes, I think that's pretty much us covered in terms of the teams as well. We've given our 11s. Finally, though, the classic one. Who do you think is going to win the game, Joe? Because you got the last one right, I got the last one wrong. I said Pakistan would win the series opener. Who do you think is going to win this next game in Southampton?
I think England will win the next test.
Confident
I think
again?
England are on a roll now. They've won their last 3 tests. So,
It's bold.
and everyone who is probably, well, I mean, we mentioned a lot of names with the exception of Leach, everyone who we've mentioned, and Ollie Robinson as well, who was loosely mentioned, but everyone else has played in one of those tests. So it's not like everyone's coming off the back of no cricket. So everyone's going to be up for it. Everyone's going to be ready to go, and why not make it 4 in a row?
I like the way you put that. Again, I'll play some devil's advocate. I do like Pakistan a lot. They play some great cricket.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
as I said, if they can replicate this performance over the course of 3 days, you've got England on the back foot, 3-4 days, create a complete performance, they could easily win. They should realistically have won that series opener. So I'm going to go with Pakistan. I think they'll tie up the series just to make it interesting. It makes it interesting as neutral as well. So for any Pakistan fans out there, Pakistan's in the bad for the second match of the series. I feel like they could come back strong. I really do. They're a very interesting team. And not only that, they're very enigmatic, aren't they, Pakistan?
Yeah.
When they play at their best, they showed glimpses of it. They're one of the most exciting and entertaining teams in the world. So I have faith that they'll pull the series back. But obviously we'll find out. That match does begin in 3 days. Should be a really, really good match. Can't wait for it. It's going to be a great series with some fantastic young players on show. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up today's show, Joe. We've comprehensively covered the next match and, of course, the series opener. Just before we go, do you have any social media plug, for example, the Instagram and the podcast?
So my Instagram, I actually got it wrong in the last preview. I got the Instagram the wrong way around. It's actually 99 Nutsy. So you can feel free to follow that. And my podcast as well is 22yards.podbean.com. So thank you again, Aaron, for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, of course, yeah. Pleasure's all mine, Joe. It's been fantastic again. And yes, don't worry about the social media links because I get them right in the description. So don't worry about that. But yes, of course, thank you very much for coming on, Joe. Again, been a fantastic talk. Great to have you on. For anyone listening or watching, please do go and check out the 22 Yards podcast. It's absolutely brilliant. Got some great guests on there, especially from the county scene. But yeah, that is it from us. If you enjoyed the video, please feel free to give it a like, subscribe to the channel. Every little helps, really, with regards to the subscriptions. But thanks always for joining in, guys. And as always, enjoy the rest of your day.